your body resets by proprioception. You're going to walk kind of slow, but if something is, it's weird. Just go, like if you're kind of a little bit sore, just go walk barefoot on some pavement. Not a long time, but it's weird. Like just things start to wake up. Like your body kind of tells you, what needs to reset and everything. Because walking actually loosens us back up. Like if something's tight, you don't need to go run, but just go walk as we get balanced again, activate our core again, get the proprioception, the feet working again.
It's summer, so depending on when you're listening to this right now, we're back at it, late August, but we had a good summer off for the most part, and I'm super excited to be back at it. We have a pretty awesome guest, and this is our first guest that's making a second visit. First repeat customer.
That says a lot.
Huge.
That says a lot.
And, whether you're in the rain with Dr. Cucuzzella, make sure you take your athletic brew under your umbrella. There's always an athletic brew for you.
Oh, yes.
It's fancy.
I got to run to the fridge.
Fancy like you forgot it.
I forgot it, but I'll get it in a second. That's for sure.
It's okay. We'll forgive you.
You know what? I thought we'd open up the little mailbag here. Do we have any mail? The audience is waiting patiently. Have we heard from them?
Rustle through the envelopes. Oh, wait, we've got video, don't we?
People actually mail nowadays?
Some. Our customers do.
Well, everyone's dying to know. Anything from Tito? Has it been all quiet on the Tito front? We've been off for 45 days since we recorded, so I'm guessing Tito has nothing to comment on.
You know what? We did get something. Tic Tac Tito 422 wrote a letter in about, I'd say it's about 3 weeks ago. And it was not really a comment, but more of a question. And it was, is this the end of the Renegade podcast? Winky face? And that was it. That was it. So to reply to your question there, Winky face Tito, we're back. So sorry. Not sorry. Here we are.
Not sorry.
Episode 16.
You know what else, Mark? I want to call attention to what I've been running in most of July, most of August. Actually, I walked a lot in July. Didn't run that much. Started back up in August. And I have the Path Project's Waddy Tee.
What up?
This is the lightweight performance tee. I did half marathon on Friday, 10K on Saturday, 10K on Sunday. I did the beer mile.
I was going to say, all in the same shirt? Wow. You're right.
Yesterday, I ran today, and
it doesn't stink.
It doesn't stink. A little bit.
Wow.
Maybe close to 12 hours of running.
Okay.
And this shirt performs amazing. It's the Waddy Tee. It's a Toray fabric from Japan. Path Projects, they're always innovating. They dropped this. They have a tank, and they have a hooded tee as well. And they just dropped a Billy Yang collaboration. For those who know Billy Yang, he's an amazing filmmaker. He's done all these great ultra films. He's fantastic. I'm going to be ordering that next. But it's a great fit. It's loose, even in the heat.
That's wicked. I would say, not that I don't trust your sniffer, but have Jen comment in after we post this episode to verify and to validate that it doesn't stink. I want a second opinion.
She's going to say it stinks. The second I get to the driveway, she's like, "You stink." I'm like, I don't stink that, but maybe I do.
And if you're interested in testing out Path Projects, our friends are offering the Renegade Podcast listeners a discount code. Use the code RENEGADE10 at checkout for 10% off your order for a limited time. We thank Path Projects, and we love being able to share the brands that we love with our audience.
Dr. Mark.
Dr. Mark.
Hello. Let me get back to Hey, Todd, how are you? And my other friend, Mark.
I'm doing good, Doctor.
Good to see you.
You know what, Dr. Mark? We had a few folks reach out to us after your first visit on the podcast. I would say the big theme of the questions, two themes. One is, what kind of running shoe does Dr. Mark wear? And then what recommendations should someone look for when they're first starting out running in their footwear? What traits should be there? What traits shouldn't be there? And then maybe like what you said, like parlay that into like an everyday shoe.
Yeah, those are great questions, Todd and Mark, and we get them all the time at the store. And like, it all depends on the person. And then I own a little running store that Todd, you have visited many times, and thank you for the support of small business. And I would say 80% of people who come into our store are looking for something to wear to work, right? Probably all of us like to go out and run or hike, but most of the time we're on our feet taking care of kids or in our day job. And most of our foot function and strengthening should be happening at that non-running time, because if we're completely dysfunctional when we're in our day job and then we want to put on a proper running shoe, you're probably going to run into trouble. So the most important thing, when I look at someone in my store, it's like a medical visit. We look at the function of their feet, and are their toes all crammed together? Because if their toes are all crammed together, they need, and now it's kind of interesting, Todd and Mark, it's actually become kind of mainstream to be wearing these toe spacers. Yeah. Like that was like a weird thing. And it was even on like CNN, they were talking about, in the run up to before President Biden left his campaign. And this isn't about politics, but they had a really long article that Sanjay Gupta did about dementia, and about talking to all of these experts. And he said in that article, the most surprising thing I learned about dementia was that there was this connection to the feet, and you should be walking barefoot and you should spread your toes out. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's fascinating. Here, like this long article about dementia prevention, and they're talking about, proprioception and balance and your toes being spread, because that sends like a neurologic message to your brain. And this was from, his name is Abrahams is his last name. And he's like the world's expert on dementia. So I'll just leave it at that. So if the world's expert on dementia is saying that it's actually important to have your toes apart and your feet, and he was talking about being barefoot, so that was pretty fascinating. So I have a couple things here. So when I'm at work, Mark Sisson is an interesting guy. So he developed a lot of the primal stuff, and this shoe is actually coming out. It's called Paluva, and it's got the 5 toes. So your toes are separated. But what's unique about this, and I'm not here selling a specific brand of shoe, but I think he's onto something, because he said this, like, if your foot just slides right into these toe pockets, you want this shoe. But if your toes don't slide into it, you probably need this shoe. Meaning it's like, it's, oh, wow, I can't get my toes into these pockets. Is it a problem with the shoe or a problem with your foot? That means you need some help, so wear the shoe. But what's different about this shoe, so I've got a pair of 5, I work at a veterans hospital now, so I can actually go to work in 5 fingers, and they're like military colors. They're like, olive and black. So they, they don't stand out. Like no one really notices them until they look down and they're like, oh, you got those toe shoes. We used to wear those in the Navy 15 years ago doing PT. But so just having a flat shoe, toes apart, and the shoe that Mark Sisson developed, Paluva, has a little bit more cushion than a 5 finger. So if you're on, like I'm on concrete all day, and it's kind of weird, this shoe just feels pretty magical. At the end of the day, I can be on my feet all day and just having just a little bit of cushion. And if for those who have worn 5-toed shoes, it's a little stiffer. So it's a little, have either of you ever struggled like getting your toes into like a 5-finger shoe?
I've never tried myself, so.
Yeah, if it's your first time, you're like, shit, I'm running late for work, and here you are like trying to get your damn like toes into the pockets. Have you?
It's always that baby toe.
Yeah, so Todd's tried. You're like, what? You're like rushing, coffees, right? Like, no, you need to get out. So like, but just an idea and a couple other things. So just
a quick question on those. So
yeah,
do you wear like, are you wearing socks on those too, like toe socks, or are you barefoot?
Yeah. I mean, I probably could go barefoot, but then they get smelly and I have to put them in the washing machine too much. Okay. But I have like some Injinji socks.
Nice.
And I'm just inviting your people just to just to try it, right? Because, no one's going to find like hard science for all of this stuff. But if your brain says, "Oh wow, this is good. I'm happy."
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
Do they come in semi-gloss black so I can wear them at work, like with a dress pant?
They do. Yeah, go to the website. He actually has a black leather
No
one.
way.
Maybe
That's
you
awesome.
could put a link.
I'm all
Palooza.
over it. That's great.
So just check it out, and that's like the basic concept. But another brand that actually you could wear with your slacks, Mark, is just a straight Vivo Barefoot.
Okay.
It's a black kind of semi-leather shoe, and unless you're wearing like a tuxedo, you can wear this with anything. And we use a lot of these insoles called Barefoot Science that help the muscles train. But it has a little bit of cushion. But really anything that when you're standing and walking, that just allows your foot to do some work, allows your foot muscles to activate. And, if any of your folks listening are older, and Courtney Conley is a good friend. She's in Boulder, and she's done some brilliant videos. And she did a podcast with Peter Attia, who's got a pretty big following. But she had some really good videos about the toe strengthening, because I see older patients, and the biggest risk for an older patient is they fall. Right? They fall, and they tend to fall forward. And no one pays attention to the feet and the toes, right? Even when they go do PT, you go to the gym, and like, do you all like occasionally like go to a gym and there's a trainer, and it might be like chest day or leg day or core day, but no one talks about like foot day.
No.
Like, well, shit, I got to like work my feet today. But the standard shoes, and for those listening, we'll describe toe spring. But toe spring is when your toes are kind of ramped up into the air. A lot of shoes kind of curve the last, which is kind of the foundation of the shoe. That's called a last. But that last is actually curves up, so it has kind of a forward rocker effect. Now, that might be fine if you're running or even walking fast. But if you're standing, and if you don't have, say you have type 2 diabetes and you've got some neuropathy, or just from aging, you've got some neuropathy, so you don't really sense the ground too much, and you have this ramped up front of the shoe, and unless you're young and have quick reactions, once you start falling forward, it's game over. Your next impact point is on the ground. So your toes are actually like super important for your feeling on the ground to protect you from falling. And I'm 57. I'm not too worried about that now, but I'm thinking, well, maybe when I'm 87, I'm going to keep my toes like pretty strong. Now, this has nothing to do with running, because like if you fall and break your hip, like your running days are probably
Right.
over, and you're probably going to end up in a nursing home or care home. So you don't want that. So, if you're standing, walking, whatever your job is, some people stand, some people have to walk, mix it up, but have something where your toes are flat, your toes are spread wide so you can balance yourself. And then how much cushion you want is really based on a little bit of preference, but don't over cushion your standing and walking shoe, because that's where you do want to feel the ground. But we can get onto running shoes, which might be a little different paradigm depending on what you're doing.
Well, like to add some like maybe real life examples, my dad had knee surgery in the springtime, and he had knee surgery last year. And I have him in ultras, and he is much more stable, flat to the ground, and he's in his late 70s now, so he probably doesn't have this great toe strength from years of wearing safety shoes and whatnot. But it's helped a little bit keep stability. So
he had a knee replacement, Todd. So a good thing he could do just to train kind of his balance, because the foot controls the knee. You can't, like after knee replacements, you can't really train the knee. You're training stability. So stability is standing on one foot and being stable on one foot, and then progressing to like step downs on one foot. So he could even get a couple, I'm sure you have ski poles up there in Canada, right? Like
everywhere.
Everywhere. Yeah, like the old ratty ones that are kind of bent, but he could just have 2 ski poles, on his ultra shoes, barefoot, and just work on balancing with those ski poles, because that really starts to just unconsciously, you have to like wake those foot muscles up. And he could do that when he's like watching telly, you know, just anything, just standing on one foot until he gets really stable. Then he can chuck the ski poles, you know, but you don't want anyone to fall again. Like if someone progresses too quick if they're in their 70s and they stand on one foot and they fall, right? You're like, no. Well, I watched this PT guy, he says do all this single foot stuff, but if your dad falls, you know, like just little ski poles, really good. Not that he's relying on them, but they're there if you need it, just for like touchdown balance.
Well, spoiler alert, we know what Todd's dad's getting for Christmas now.
Well, you got them in your garage. I'm sure you have like many varieties of old
short ones,
mismatched
tall
trash
ones,
ski
old
poles.
ones, new ones. We got them all.
Cross-country ones, downhill ones.
That's right. So I have a question for you. So, so right now at work we have sit-stand desks, which is great. I love it. I tend to stand the majority of the day. But do you ever look behind like cash registers at grocery stores and you see the people that are standing all day long and they have those cushiony mats that are there? Do you think they're doing more harm than good when they're wearing shoes on top of?
I think.
Like what kind of impact do those have?
I think those are good. So like I'm at a sit-stand desk now and I'm just grabbing my little mat. It's a little spiky mat, as you see.
Oh, nice.
And it's even got another little mat underneath it. But I tend to like, when I'm standing at my stand-up desk, I'm barefoot. Okay. And what you'll see a lot of times is people behind these counters with those mats. And I think having like a little textured mat is really good because it's got all these little spikies that just keep the foot muscles kind of awake, so it's less fatiguing. You know, so you can stand a lot longer. Like they would be a lot less fatigued if they got rid of the shoe, stood in their socks, on like a little bit of a cushion mat that had some spikiness to it. And if they were allowed to do that, and I'm sure some are, they just kick their shoes off behind the counter, stand on this little spiky mat, that would just energize them, you know, through that shift. But like if you were barefoot on concrete for 12 hours, you know, behind a counter, that's not like a natural condition. But these little mats, they're called Konex mats, Konex. But there's a lot of these little spiky mats, and we have them at my store, and it's crazy. Like if someone's never, it's like just take your shoes off and stand on this thing. Like it's not voodoo. Just see what it does, and they stand on this thing. Have you stood on one of these mats, Todd? The little spiky ones, with your bare feet? When you're there, they're like these old mats. I don't know if you saw those.
When I went to my physio a couple years back, they had, I forget the name of the mat, a Noboso mat.
Yeah, I've got a Noboso one too.
Physio on the Noboso mat.
Yeah, this one has a little kind of softer.
Yeah, they're fantastic. But that's a good idea, Mark.
Yeah, they're like, so take, but like it is fatiguing, Mark. Like if you're on a very cushiony shoe and a cushiony mat, so it's actually more fatiguing. Like a big foamy shoe, like say you're in like a Hoka shoe, which might feel really good on rocky trail or something, but trying to stabilize yourself in something that's really soft takes a lot of work, right? Your muscles. So there's always like a little sweet spot, right? And it may be different. And it's like the Goldilocks thing. So barefoot on concrete, probably no bueno, no good. Bueno. But if you're just on a marshmallow all day, you know, probably not good either, but mix it up. It's kind of interesting. So like I've got a stand desk at work, and like it's like you feel good like this, and then okay, let me just change that out. Cause you know, you mix it up all day, sit a little bit, you know, I'm at a stand up desk here. I got a little Swiss ball I'll sit on, you know, put my leg behind me in a Swiss ball, having a little step. Like if you're at a stand up workstation, just like you're at an Irish bar, you know, it's weird. Just having a rail. There's something about just having 1 foot up on a rail. Have you ever stood at a bar, maybe once or twice in Canada?
I've stood like Captain Morgan many times before.
Yes, and there's always a rail at the bar, right? Is that true? Do the Canadian bars have rails?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, and the Irish ones do, because people stand at Irish bars, maybe Canadian, for hours, right? They just because that's where you hang out.
That's right.
And I mean, next time you're at a bar, you're going to notice instinctively you're going to want to put 1 foot up on that rail.
It's just
you just have to, and you don't know.
So
why it is.
I do have a follow-up.
I don't know why. Maybe you tell me. What is it about the rail that feels better than if you're standing, you know, at a counter or at a bar that your feet are flat, or you put one up on the rail?
It's a power pose. It attracts, you know.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, it attracts people to you.
The gender you're trying to attract.
That's right.
Whatever the gender. Okay. That's all there is
that's it.
to it.
It's just the stance.
It's a mating
That's right.
call.
Yeah, you don't have to like bleat your chest or your chest or anything. It's just the stand.
Yeah, just
You're good to go.
put your foot up.
It's worked.
Okay.
Married for 17 years.
Works for you many times. How many times?
Once. Yeah, it only had to work once, right? So.
Okay, now you don't go to the bar.
That's right. It's been a while. So just a follow-up question to the mat. I was on Amazon the other day, and there's a suggestion for recovery shoes, and they're like slides that are like the ultra like foamy whatnot. So if I was ever to I know we laugh about this because I didn't end up running this past weekend, but if I was to ever enter a race and run a long distance, do you ever recommend wearing a certain kind of footwear afterwards to help your feet recover, or do you think just walking around the house barefoot, just continuing on, is enough for you? Is it a gimmick, I guess? Are recovery footwear of any type a gimmick?
Yeah, I would probably go with that. So, I mean, how do you recover, get off your feet? So this world of recovery, I mean, I'm 57, right? So when we were young, it was called active recovery. Right, you'd get sleep, you'd have a meal, and you'd walk it off. We didn't have a recovery industry, right? Like so now recovery is like this, it's an industry. I mean, I've got a bunch of shit behind me, right? I've got foam rollers, and I got all this stuff, but I don't think there's a specific. But here's what I would say, that probably weighs it. So the original recovery shoes were soccer players or footballers, right? So they're in these really stiff, uncomfortable cleats, because they have to, right? That's a sports-specific footwear, right? And it's not a comfortable shoe to walk around in. So like before their days of marketed recovery shoes, all the soccer players all had slides, correct? The Canadian soccer players, they all kind of put on these slides and they all carry them in their packs.
That's right, yeah.
And they usually would be a sandal that would have just not the toe thing between. It would just be like a little overlay and be like a flip-flop without the toe thing. And because their feet just needed to spread out. And yeah, I'm sure that like instinctively, and they couldn't go barefoot onto the team bus and walk around, the town and go to the bars and meet the ladies or whatever they wanted to do. So they had to put on their Adidas. They had to look good too, right? So they had those Adidas slides, or Diadora had this goes before running shoe days. Diadora had these beautiful, bright, colorful slides, and they weren't super soft. They were just like a firm rubber, but they weren't minimal because you had to like slide your foot in. If it's too flimsy, you couldn't walk around in it, right? You would need a back strap. Right. And I guess that wasn't hip, right? So you'd slide your foot in, and you'd be able to walk and stand, but your foot would be allowed to really spread out. So I think that principle, get out of, like if you did a trail ultra, like I've done those, and your feet, if you've worn shoes, your feet just need to get out of those shoes. Would that be fair to say, Todd, after like 8 hours on a trail? Yes, and your feet just need to get out of those shoes.
First, you got to check if you got all your toes.
Yes.
You don't want to leave one in there, right?
Your toes are black, they're bloody, your socks are smelly, and like you just need out of that. And your feet are tender too, and you don't want to be barefoot. But like kids, just let them go recover by being natural. So, but you don't need to spend a lot of money on a recovery shoe. So if there's like someone is sharing a scientific study showing some recovery shoe is better than the other, I probably would question the methodology of that study and look at who the funder is, sponsored by Diadora, whatever it is.
And I imagine those.
But I think some proprioception, so back to Nabosu, so I've got little insoles that have these little spiky things that you can just put in and out, like they're Naboso insoles, right? So they're pretty magical. Like they feel really good, like these little, you're just, and barefoot on those, like not in a sock. Like if you've got like a little spiky insole, be barefoot on the spiky insole and just try it. And if your brain likes it, you don't need a scientific study. You're like, oh, I like this. And if your brain doesn't like it, like, no, it's not for you. Even like going out and being barefoot on some pavement, like your body resets by proprioception. You're going to walk kind of slow, but if something is, it's weird, just go Like if you're kind of a little bit sore, just go walk barefoot on some pavement. Not a long time, but it's weird. Like just things start to wake up. Like your body kind of tells you, what needs to reset and everything. Because walking actually loosens us back up. Like if something's tight, you don't need to go run, but just go walk as we get balanced again, activate our core again, get the proprioception, the feet working again.
That's right. And I think I saw I saw in some of the pictures, Todd, that when you were over in Europe this past summer, you were wearing your sandals over there again. So how are they on cobblestone? I'm sure they were nice and comfortable as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I wore those every single day, all over Italy, walking through the cobblestones, on the cobblestones.
Yeah, and here's what Todd's talking about.
Just 25,000 steps every single day.
So I still have to purchase myself some of these stylish sandals, but one of these days I'll get there, especially when I go over to Greece or something like that. I want to fit in, right?
Yeah, Mark, can you see this one on the camera? You can even get them with kind of colorful laces. And if you go to Europe, this is all you need to bring, right? You can run in it, walk in it. Then it minimizes your pack. So then you just got the one little bag. You don't need to have all these different shoes. You just can go everywhere in a pair of sandals, and it's all you need. You're good to go.
Yep.
And just have your.
I tried to get Jen to pack a pair
fancy clothes.
One pair of shoes. That
didn't work. Yeah, ladies sometimes, even the dudes, it doesn't work. They need more. But it's good if it's a stylish pair of sandals, like the Shamas or Luna sandals, Bedrock sandals. They're all really good.
Yeah, they're definitely sharp looking, and I know they're functional as well. I've seen Todd running in them a few different times as well. So no, that's great. So, Dr. Mark.
Oh, I learned from Dr.
There
Mark,
you go. So, Dr. Mark, what has kept you busy this summer? What kind of things do you have on the go these days?
Yeah, I'm deep entrenched into my job. I'm a physician at the Veterans Hospital, and most of my medical work is around diabetes and diabetes remission and more about nutrition, because probably similar in Canada, but in America, metabolic illness, type 2 diabetes, and all the ramifications of type 2 diabetes, which would be cardiovascular disease, dementia, forms of cancer, fatty liver. Mm-hmm. So we have a generation of humans now that are not healthy people. And, it's, if you kind of were a Martian and you came down to the planet now, and you'd be like, there's no healthy people left. Like these people are just taking pharmaceuticals for everything. Like it'd be like dystopia. If you had gone 50 years, like say you came back 50 years later, it's a totally different place. So I'm working with people, and if you don't have your health, the quality of your retirement and your life is greatly diminished, and you can't run, right? You can't walk. You're going to spend your lives going to doctor visits. So we talk a lot about exercise, because exercise kind of is the magic pill. It helps your brain, it helps your mitochondria, it helps your muscles, but like a lot of what people need to understand is the nutrition side, understand that, and then they get their energy back and they can exercise again. So I find joy every day, because every day you see someone come back and they're better. Yeah, they're better. Like my first patient this morning, like in 6 months, he's 30 pounds down. He was pre-diabetic and hypertensive on medication for that. And he comes in today and all of his lab markers are completely normal. He's not pre-diabetic or diabetic. Wow. His blood pressure's normal. So he's back to like a healthy human again, which should be normal, right? But now that's abnormal.
That's normal.
Yeah, and that's not people, like, you give them simple advice in 10 minutes. We don't have, I'm not sure, a GP in Canada. It's not like we have 2 hours of health coaching. You have to, in 20 minutes with all of their other agendas, which usually isn't about, they don't even know what prediabetes is. The people in my clinic are usually there because their back hurts, because they're military veterans, right? They've got all these other things, post-traumatic stress, and somehow you have to get them to at least understand that, like, this is going to impact all aspects of your health. But the good news, maybe Canada's similar. I mean, you guys, like, you're hunters up there, right? So I'm dealing with military veterans, and most of these guys, if I say, look, you just need to eat more animal products, does that sound like that's going to suck, or does that sound pretty good? And they're like, oh yeah, like I like steak, right? I like venison. Yeah, so this isn't like a weird thing, right? I like cheese. I'm not telling them to go to the Whole Foods market and buy like organic lettuce. I'm just telling them to eat the things that like their parents and their grandparents went hunting for, and go find some vegetables to add on the side.
That's right. Not the processed
but
stuff.
these days it's not easy to do in the world around us. So that's what I do. But I go to my store once a week, and we deal with people's feet and that's kind of fun. So that gets me away from the more serious stuff. Most of my 9 to 5 day life is people dealing with more serious illness. So maybe, I'm not sure, for both of you, you have to have something that is a little less life threatening every day, and ramifications if they don't if people don't understand the footwear other than falling, which I think is like, that's people like don't really understand that, like the older people who come in, how important the footwear is and their toe strength is. This isn't about your foot. This is about not falling, which is a higher level than just plantar fasciitis or, something like that.
If you're a good old-fashioned trail runner, you love to fall. Because if you're doing it right, you're probably going to fall a few times out there.
Yeah, absolutely. But you'll get a fracture and you'll recover. It's usually not the trail runners don't get hip fractures. They'll get, you'll I broke my toes and broke finger trail running. Like, you'll do stupid stuff like that.
And are you getting out a lot to trail run still?
Yeah. I do kind of mix. I had a knee surgery last fall, so I found I'm 57 now, so many miles on my body. I find it's a little better for my body. I'll run one day and then I'll kind of ruck. We call it rucking in the States. So like, I've got a 40-pound weight vest, and I find if I mix the walking and the running, it's a lot better for me for sustainability and recovery. You talked about recovery. So things, if people listening and they know that, so anyone who's close to 60 listening knows their body recovers different than it did when we were 30. And, sometimes it's almost like you have to mourn a little bit and accept the fact, as much as your brain wants to go out and run every day, like the body's tissue, you don't recover quite as much and as quick as you do, even if you do everything right. And we're probably all a little bit sleep deprived, including myself, just with your pattern of your day, because I've got to get up really early to exercise. If I don't exercise before work, the rest of the day is gone. So I probably, I could use another hour or two of sleep, maybe another hour of sleep. So that's maybe my goal for the next year, is figure out how to get that. I think without sleep, we're probably all wasting our time, and we've all been there too, right, Mark?
Absolutely.
I see you nodding. You're like, yeah, if I had an extra 2 hours of sleep,
well, that's it.
That life would be good.
That's it. I find that, unfortunately, I'm usually around 6, sometimes 7, which is great when I do get 7. But those injuries, they do creep up on you, and mine aren't necessarily from running. I find it's so I have kids that are 7 and 4, and the other. Well, this past weekend, what happened to me is I put my back out because we have an air mattress that we inflate when we want to watch a movie in the basement, and one of them fell asleep in the middle, and I reached over to grab her and picked her up and felt that twinge, and then brought her up to bed, and then the next day, or actually even while I was sleeping, I could feel it. It was like lightning in my back when I was like tossing and turning, and then in the morning I just knew I did something. So it was a really rough day with my back. Just I had to put heating pack on it, or just a heating pad, and just whatever I could do to not move for the majority of the day, unfortunately, which is a bit of a write-off because we only really have the weekends when we're working all week long, right? So it was just a waste
to recover. Have for those listening, have, no matter how, I have a 10-minute morning maybe mobility recovery routine.
Yeah.
So like, find whatever it is you need. Like when you get like a tweak, that just means you got to do a little more maintenance, and it doesn't need to be long or intense or sexy. So I've got like some cat camels, hip mobilities, little glute bridge planks in the morning, just to kind of get everything that's stuck, hang out in a bretzel position a little bit. That opens the hips, a little bit of knees over toes. Just 10 minutes of, everyone has like something that they know is like their kryptonite spot. Yeah, you don't want to wait till it gets tweaked and then you got to like take off a week.
Well, that's it. Yeah.
But even you could do all that stuff correctly and you're still going to end up doing something, but that's all right. Like being idle is no good. So you're better to be active and hurt yourself every now and then than to be passive, sit on your ass and get diabetes, right? So we want the former is okay.
So you said it doesn't have to be sexy, but it can still be a little bit sexy though, right? If I'm just doing the stretch and then
you could, I don't share my shit on YouTube.
Remember
but
this?
you could make your little TikTok video and be in a tank top.
There we go.
Put your handle at the bottom.
Yep. Excellent.
Todd, we could, after this, you could link them. They're on the Two Rivers Treads website. I think we have Mark's morning routine on there, which you could modify, and I think we have the Bretzel on there.
And then we can ease into, what was the other thing, Todd?
The Awesomizer is really
that's
good
right.
too.
Is that an easy thing to ease into?
Awesomizer.
Yeah, and that's on our website. It's on my book's website.
Oh my gosh, she's not gonna have a chance when she sees that.
Another question that came in, it was from Forrest. Forrest knew we were going to talk to you. And he's like, talk to Dr. Mark about Lawrence Van Lingen and the Awesomizer and the flow rope.
Yeah, I have my flow rope right here. Yeah, so this is also
you do the flow rope.
I have a flow rope. So Lawrence Van Lingen, who is works with a lot of the Olympic triathletes that you just watched over in Paris. And I just did a blog showing some of the things that he did. So after this I'll give you that. But yeah, so Lawrence is like he is like the Yoda of movement. So he taught me the flow rope. And the Awesomizer is an exercise that he uses to create kind of big toe awareness, hip opening, just balance and stability of running. So he's one of these guys who just thinks differently, and he worked really close with Taylor Knibb, who was bronze medalist in that triathlon relay. And Drew Hunter finished 4th in the U.S. Olympic trials in the 10,000 meters. And Drew had been hurt for, they were neighbors here, from Virginia, West Virginia, right? So we did camps together and he was broken for like 4 years. And then on a chance, he started working with Lawrence and he came out of nowhere. And that was his second 10K ever. And he finished 4th in the U.S. Olympic trials. Yeah, so one place away from making the team. But that just all these things bring kind of joy back into your, so if your movement is joyful and fluid, right, I think that's helps everything, right? So if everything's kind of stiff and stuck like flow rope, the whole thing is developing this flow with your upper body and your lower body. Have you been playing with it, Todd? Have you been doing, I know Flores has been doing, because he worked with, he lives down near Lawrence, so.
Yeah, they live close
yeah,
by.
so he got taught by the master.
So they do it.
Lawrence just sent me some videos,
That's right?
right? So
taught him.
I had to learn it that way, but yeah, flow rope is good. So just now it's become trendy. Like you could just go type flow rope into YouTube and you see all these videos now. So go open that up. It's interesting. Yeah, so please link to his sites on this and share that with whoever your listeners are, on your emails. But he's a good friend and I met Lawrence, over 10 years ago in LA, and he changed my life just by just hanging out with him for a weekend and watching the way his mindset was. And I got text from him today, so it's just nice. Like he was sending pictures from Paris. So it's cool. Like he's in the mix there, but he just a genuine, cares about people.
That's awesome. That's great. And so the Olympics just finished up as well. Were you paying close attention to what was happening over there? Anybody that just wowed you with their performance or anything else that was notable from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, just being like a super fan,
Yeah.
right? Like I'm just like a track fan. And I could only watch it on like YouTube videos, NBC Olympics. I don't have like live television. I live pretty old school. So, but I would watch all and then it was, you wouldn't know what was going on, but the U.S. track team, did pretty amazing, for where they've been in the last like 2 decades. Grant Fisher, bronze medal in 5K and 10K, against all the East Africans. That's pretty insane. And, Cole Hocker, comes through and wins the gold medal. I mean, people were talking about him because he's got probably the best kick in the field, but not in the way that, the respect he probably deserved, but that was probably good for him. And even like Bryce Hoppel ran a 1:41.800, set the American record and finished fourth. But still, that's a pretty amazing performance. And the ladies, our women's sprinters are incredible. Sha'Carri Richardson and the 4x4 and 4x100. Our ladies, you got to give them full credit as they can pass a baton to each other. And our dudes are not too good. And I think your Canadian team, did silver or gold in the 4x1? You won the gold in the 4x1?
Got gold. So
yeah, I think you won the gold.
We did.
Yeah, we dropped the batons, or like we got DQ'd. So
yeah, so it was and like you're saying too, with in terms of watching it, I'm with the young kids, and we stream everything here as well. So it's I'm getting the highlights as they come in, and so I was able to pay attention a little bit, and then seeing the medal counts. But certainly U.S. just I think they tripled, at least tripled, maybe quadrupled the number of goals that we ended up getting. But still a great.
But the Winter Olympics is coming soon,
right.
And you guys will crush us, right? So that's pretty much a given.
So watch out, curling, hockey,
curling. Yeah, so we're the Winter Olympics from Northern Italy, so you guys you'll get your revenge in the Winter Olympics.
There we go.
But you know what? I think the most impressive thing that I watched was, you saw the profile of that marathon course in the middle of July in Paris. The highs of each day was going to be like 80 degrees, and like you're like, this course is going to destroy people. For the men, there's no way anyone will run 2:06 or something, right? Like it would be one, like most Olympic races are won in some time that's not, super fast. But the guy, Tola, ran 2:06 on that course. That's insane. And the two Americans,
Mm-hmm.
finished 8th and 9th. It's under like 2:08, like on that course. And then the women the next day run like 2:22 on that course.
Wow.
That was a tough course.
That was impressive, right? Yeah. I mean, like in America, we'd say just ballsy, right? They didn't like sit back and like, oh, it's a tough course, we're gonna have to take it easy. No, they were like game on from the go. So you got to give the ladies and the men credit to go after that course and do so well.
That's right. And I was just anticipating or listening to when the triathlon was going to happen too as well, with when it was going to be safe enough to swim. Right. I mean, that was something that was an ongoing challenge, I think, that week with the rain and whatnot too as well. Right. So what a situation. But yeah, it's so fascinating. It's always amazing seeing all those athletes.
Yeah, so even if you can't, for folks like, us, armchair, we're getting older, it's still really fun to watch it and, be a fan and, just keep up with, Mondo Duplantis, 18 feet world record. Just watching that's really cool.
Absolutely.
Do you ever think that the marathon time would be so consistently close? Like, you always have those outliers, but it seems like everyone's running sub 210, sub 208 nowadays. Going back when you were competing, did you ever think it was going to get that fast?
Yeah, I think where you're kind of like everything kind of improves slowly, and then there's like a leap.
Yeah.
But I mean, no kidding. These are amazing human performances, but the world changed when they came out with the carbon shoes, because these are truly trampolines, right? So the shoes right? You could be barefoot on pavement, or you could be on a trampoline, and the trampoline will give you more spring, right? You're going to jump onto a trampoline. So they really did change the game, by percentage points. But it's an even playing field now. Everyone can get those shoes, but the shoes have really changed. And like I don't use those shoes and probably have no need to. I'm not trying to run a 2:06 marathon, but when people wear those shoes, the recovery, they say like it doesn't beat them up, right? They can, like, the next day. I don't know. Have you tried, even like Ultra makes that? I've got friends who have worn, they train more minimal to strengthen their foot, but then they throw on the Ultra Vanish Carbon, and they're like, oh my God, this is like magical, right? They're like this, like, I'm not tired, but you wouldn't train in that every day. But when they throw that shoe on, and this was probably like the day I knew the world changed. It was before the pandemic. Maybe it was like the 2018 Boston Marathon, 2019. It was when they were orange. It was when the first Vaporfly came on the market. And I'm at the Boston Marathon and like the first corral, and most of the guys there are pretty good runners. You know, the corral in front are the pros, and then you got the first corral. And I'm in sandals, like I'm in sandals. And I'm looking around and I'm like, everyone else is in those shoes. And I'm like, all right, it's over. But, 10 years before, you were either in something minimal, like everyone had a racing flat, right? So no one had big, cushy shoes. I mean, everyone had these skinny racing flats because they were really light. But now it was like the opposite was true. Everyone was in the spring shoes. And so it's different now. And it's kind of taken a little bit of the purity out of it, I think. Just, road marathoning. Trails are a little bit different now. People just tend to go out and wear whatever. But the road marathon scene now is like taken over by these, very expensive shoes, and running is an equalizer of people with economic means. And now, like, if you don't have the $300 pair of shoes, no kidding, you're at a disadvantage, if you're trying to earn a paycheck, there's like these people are. Yeah, but it was crazy, like more than beat me that year than beat me the year before those shoes were there. So with like a similar time, I'd gone from like 150th place, like to below 500th place. And, I was like 50 years old at the time, but like just, I don't know, weather conditions, but just like that, it was like the pack moved forward, right? And I'm still in the same place. And the rest of them are just, but it's okay. You just breathe and you're like, it is what it is, right?
That's right. That's right.
But we're all out there having fun. Like I wasn't that bothered by it. It was that's the world we live in now. It's a different, right? Like if you have a flip phone and everyone's got an iPhone now, you're like, damn, like, there's something else out there. I'm missing.
No,
it.
you just gotta wait.
Or you could just be.
You gotta wait till it
like,
comes back in style, right? Like that's how it goes.
Just keep your flip phone.
So what would be the most economic or, I guess, ease of entry into a carbon shoe? Like, are there cheaper ones out there that are more like beginner entry level, or are they all around like $300 and up? Like,
gosh, I'm not like an expert on the carbon shoes, but every company now is
do they all have
one.
them? Okay.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's going to be knockoffs that are probably, pieces of shit. So yeah. So I don't know. I think but again, like what's going to happen, this is what I think in the shoe market. So just like a trampoline, right? If you had like a stiffness of a trampoline, it might be perfectly tuned for someone who's 80 pounds, but if you're 280 pounds, it's not going to be tuned for you, right? Like the stiffness of the trampoline is going to need to be tuned for your body weight, maybe even the way you run. So what I predict, and maybe in 10 years we can get back on the line here, is you'll go into a running shoe store 5 years from now, carbon shoe for 140 to 160 pounds, shoe for 160 to 180 pounds, because it'll be tuned, just like a little mini tramp. And I don't think that's too hard for someone to imagine like that context. Like the little kid who's 80 pounds is going to react different than his dad, who's got a beer belly from all the Canadian lager. He'll just crush it, and he'll destroy it in one bounce, where the kid's like bouncing happily. So people that are buying these shoes designed for 130-pound Kenyans, and if you're 260 pounds of muscle, heel striker, you'll just trash that shoe. So, you better have a lot of money to keep buying new shoes. So they're really tuned now for people that are like high-end runners. So when I see someone trying to run a 4-hour marathon in them, I don't think it's probably giving them the same advantage as someone who's like a track runner.
Okay.
Right? The track runner gets the advantage from the shoe because they're running like on the ball of the foot. They're running springy anyway. But someone who's kind of ground pounding, and no disrespect, run how you run to bring you joy and fitness. But I don't think that type of person buying a $300, $400 now pair of shoes is going to give them like a 4% edge, versus front of the pack person. But maybe that's your business model now. Come up with a shoe company with, decent, not overpriced carbon shoes, scientifically tested, because no kidding, the person who gets discriminated against is the bigger runner, right? Everything is designed for all these sleek, skinny elite runners, right? Everything's like that. But then most runners now, are built like average Canadians and Americans, right? They just want to prevent heart disease and get out and finish a marathon or 5K,
That's right.
whatever it is. That's right. And they need like more of like a monster truck shoe than a Tesla thing. But I don't know. That's just my 2 cents on the situation.
That makes sense.
For what it's worth.
I'm still sticking with my ultras. They're serving me well.
We got Mark sold on ultras.
Yeah, I can't run in anything else right now. I mean, I see those Hokas come up in advertisements and stuff.
And are they pretty available in Canada, like ultras and topos?
It's funny.
Topos are also nice too, similar.
So
we sell a lot of those at my store.
Yeah, I find that. So I purchase online right now, and where I tend to source them from is Quebec, so a province over from Ontario here, where we are, and that's where I tend to get the best deals. And then, funny enough. I don't know if you have these stores down in where you are, but we have something called Winners here, where it's kind of like somewhat of a discount store where they just get all kinds of random brands just land there. And every once in a while, we find some ultras there as well. So
yeah, they're closing them out. Yeah, so you can just find them.
So
buy 6 pairs.
Well, that's it. I think I got these for like $70, and I was like, you know what?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a Superior. No, that's a Lone Peak. Peak. $70. That's
That's it, and that's $70 Canadian. So if we do my math, you're like
with the
like $50, something like that. Yeah, it's pretty good.
Cheaper than wholesale.
And the funny thing is like the week before, I just bought that pair online for probably about like $25-$30 more, still on discount. And then I find them in the Winners there. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna use these when my other ones start showing some wear. So they're excellent.
Well, you also like your favorite shoe style. So I got into the Ultra Escalantes. And, Dr. Mark, when I was down there in the springtime, I bought the Escalante 4 Racers from Two Rivers Treads. They're fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
Fantastic shoe. I love it. It's kind of like a nod back to the original Escalante. I've been wearing it, probably about 150 miles so far in them. Fast days, slow days. I love them.
Good feedback. Thank you.
Yeah, they're dynamite. They're dynamite. Dr. Mark, here, every day you're taking care of the veterans at the hospital. Is there something from either the mental health, from nutrition, or from sports that's really piqued your interest in the last few months? Is there something that you're like, wow?
Yeah, so interesting you asked that, because this weekend I'm giving a talk. So I deal with a lot of like really sick, seriously obese, diabetic patients. And the whole world of the weight loss medicines has gone sideways, right? So these are these Ozempics, Mounjaros, Wegovy's, Zepbounds, they're called GLP-1 agonists. And these medicines have been around, Todd, for like almost 20 years now. And we use these medicines in small doses for a decade for diabetes patients. And small doses of these medicines have this powerful neuro effect. So they affect neuroinflammation. And a lot of people have a lot of just control issues and food noise, right? They have no break on food. So small doses of these medicines were really powerful, and that's how we used these medicines for years with really good effects. And they actually, like, they're studied, really strongly in addiction medicine, because it like dials down this noise, this dopamine response. And then they got trendy and became weight loss medicines, and they became newsworthy, and they were being dosed now in super high doses, right? So when they became weight loss medicines, the goal of big pharma and the people using them was crank the dose up. Right? It's the same drug, right? Whether it's called Ozempic or Wegovy, it's the same drug. It's the same exact peptide. It's a peptide, and our gut makes and our brain makes this peptide. So everything started to go sideways, right? Then you started to hear about gut paralysis, pancreatitis, all these horrible things. And then everyone wants to source them, and you can't get them anymore. But they're being dosed in these super high doses. And now have become like unavailable, and just like maybe the old minimalist debate, like, are you a minimalist fan or a maximalist, right? No, it's nuanced. It all depends. And so my talk this weekend is called the once and future use of these medications, because they are very powerful for a lot of medical conditions when used in small doses, not these big doses. And it helps your brain, it helps your mitochondria, helps your pancreas produce a bit more insulin, helps all of these responses that are driving a lot of chronic disease, because really we've gone so sideways with chronic disease. Some people need a nudge to get out of a bad situation, and some people you need like a team of 10 horses to pull you out of the ditch, right? And a lot of people we see need the 10 horses to pull them out of the ditch. And so I'm kind of making the case, I'm someone who wants people to do low carb ketogenic diets. That's like the terrain. Like, you have to understand that, you need to strength train, you need to eat protein, but some people still struggle, and they struggle a lot. And we need to still be able to help them. And we can't just say, oh, that's all, you just need to double down and, keto harder, exercise more, right? Like, it's their fault. I'm seeing pretty amazing results when we get people back on low doses of these meds after we fight through the barriers. And a lot of people have to go find these medicines compounded now, which people think, oh, that's kind of dark, but compounding pharmacies are monitored if you go to the right one, and they're monitored by your state safety boards. But you're in Canada, so people can find these medications in Canada for $150 a month, but in America it's like $1,200 a month. So the cost of these medications is like off the rails. So it'll be interesting just to get feedback on everything. Always comes full circle, right? Like, what once was good that goes sideways, right? And then comes back. Let's look, what did we learn from this? Right, but go 5 fingers, right? Oh, that hurts people. No, the shoes don't hurt people. We learned a lot by anyone who put on a pair of 5 fingers learned something about their body, about how strong they were, about what their vulnerabilities were. It wasn't, oh, no one should wear these, we should ban them in the army, which they did because a couple people got hurt. When every day people wearing the beastie shoes are getting hurt. So I don't know, that's just, maybe we could talk about that in a month or so, bring me back on, but
Absolutely.
not to open that can of worms about weight loss drugs, but it's really, metabolic health. We want to help people get better.
Yeah.
And we need to pull out all the stops that are scientifically vetted to help them get better, and not discriminate against things because they've been used wrong. I don't know, like, you guys are seeing these meds used in Canada, and it's all over social media. And then I don't know, what are you hearing there? Like, I'm in America, where the financial outlay for these meds is not a reality for America now, at $1,200 a month per patient, when 70% of our country is overweight or obese. You can't, like, you have to be selective about who needs them, right? Tenets of medical ethics and justice, like, you need to do good for the largest number of people and the most in need.
And you touched on it earlier, and I saw this 100%. So we went to Italy, and you can see that the food's different. A lot more activity. People are walking lots, and you don't see the rate of obesity that you would see in North America.
So prevention is where the money's at, but the problem is now, an ounce of prevention versus a pound of cure. But 50% of our population now, unfortunately, needs a pound of cure. So, because we're so far, like, the house is burning, right? You can't fix the building codes and, the wiring in the neighborhood, right? Yeah. So the house is burning, and it's a sad place we've gotten to. But, like, I think, I still have hope we can get out of it. So, but maybe not. Maybe we're in that place now where it ain't coming back. So take care of yourselves if you're out there. Just feed your family real food and get out and move, and
real food and get out.
Listen to good shows like this that teach you, how to get out in the woods and be in nature.
Take care of those feet.
So I appreciate you guys, having me back, and talking about some of my favorite topics, medical and non-medical.
I know these conversations could keep on going on and on and on, but we really appreciate you coming on, Dr. Mark. I mean, it's always a blast having you here. And as our second returning guest member, we really appreciate you coming in. Thank you so much.
For Freedom's Run, if you can. So
that's right. I was just going to talk about that. Coming up, when's the date of the Freedom's Run, Dr. Mark?
October 12th.
October 12th. And this is a half marathon and a marathon, not for the
half marathon, 5K, 10K. So, you have family and so it's a fun event all through the woods. You've done it. It's good, small town.
It's beautiful down there. Beautiful. So we'll link that in the show notes. And we just thank you for your time. Like Mark said, you're a returning guest. You're the highest viewership that we had. Everyone loved your episode. It's still garnering tons of views. So we really appreciate it. And we'll have you back for sure, anytime. And we just thank you, Dr. Mark, for all you do.
Well, thank you both. On to the Winter Olympics 2026.